A light rain fell on a night when the whole city seemed to be asleep. Taidy sat by the window, her small room illuminated only by the orange glow of a lamp. Her life wasn't bad, but it didn't feel meaningful either. Every day was the same. Study, graduate, work, earn money. The cycle repeated, without knowing where she was going. Taidy, murmuring softly, "Is this all life should be?" Suddenly, a faint whisper pierced the sound of the rain. It wasn't from inside the room. It wasn't a voice from her thoughts, but it came from far away. Taidy's heart pounded, although she didn't know what to be afraid of. Mysterious voice. "If you want to know where life ends, come to us." Taidy, startled. Who's speaking? The voice wasn't forceful, nor urging, but it seemed to be waiting, as if something was calling her to step out of the familiar, into a place no one wanted to go. And that was the first step into a story that was about to change her life forever. Or maybe I should listen to it, just once. A deserted graveyard in the middle of the city, quieter than Taidy had ever imagined. No birdsong, no wind, only a profound stillness. Until she began to feel that this silence was watching her. "What am I doing here?" she murmurs as she walks past rows of graves, until she sees an old man sitting under a dry tree. "Old man, don't be afraid. No one will hurt anyone here." "Who are you?" "Me? I am merely the guardian of memories." The old man smiled gently, a smile that calmed Taidy. But something was wrong. His chest wasn't moving. He wasn't breathing. And that made her begin to understand that this wasn't an ordinary place. The old man stood up. He pointed to a grave. The stone plaque was still new, as if it had just been placed. The name engraved on it was Taidy. In that instant, her whole world seemed to stop spinning. "Taidy, is this a joke?" The keeper of memories. "The time is not yet right, but it is always waiting." "Taidy, this can't be real, can it?" Guardian of memories. "It's still empty, because you still have time." "Taidy, time for what?" Guardian of memories. "Time to understand life before you actually lie here." Taidy stepped back, tears welling up. Her heart pounded so hard she could almost hear it. The grave hadn't been dug up. The soil still hadn't been used to cover it. It was as if it was waiting for a decision from the person whose name was inscribed there. Taidy. Who were they? The memory guardian. People who once lived, but never truly lived it. The memory guardian led Taidy past other graves. Above each grave, certain images floated vividly. One was wealthy, but died alone. Another had a family, but never listened to anyone. And many others were still breathing, but their hearts had stopped beating long ago. Taidy gazed at those images with an indescribable feeling. The keeper of memories, in a flat tone. Some people arrive at the graveyard even before their bodies die. The words weren't loud, nor harsh, but they pierced Taidy deeply. She began to understand that this graveyard didn't just hold the dead, but it held the stories of people who had forgotten that they had ever lived. As Taidy stepped out of the graveyard, the town seemed normal again.
People walked past each other, smiling, laughing, working. Everything was still bustling. But in that normalcy, something was missing. The shadows of the people didn't move with them, as if they were walking without anything following them. Taidy. Everything seems normal, but why do I feel strange? A boy tugged at Taidy's arm. His eyes were clear, but filled with sadness, like someone who saw something that most adults couldn't see. His short words made Taidy's heart ache, for no reason. The boy. Do you see? See what? They're still walking, but their hearts are gone.
Why are they like that? The boy, whispering. Because they've forgotten why they live. The answer was very soft, yet it echoed loudly in Taidy's head. She looked around and began to see an emptiness hidden within the hustle and bustle. A city full of people, yet lacking meaning. And at that very moment, Taidy began to fear. Not death, but the fear of living a life where the heart wasn't present. Taidy returned to the graveyard once again. Her heart was filled with questions. Not questions about the future, but questions about the meaning of life. The old man looked at her for a long time, as if reading the thoughts hidden in her heart, before answering simply. Taidy quickly asked, "Should I be afraid of death?" The keeper of memories. No. But one should fear living, without ever living. The keeper of memories, continuing softly. Graduates aren't there to haunt. They're there to remind us that time is limited. The old man sits beside the grave. He gently pats the earth, as if comforting someone. Taidy sits silently, listening to every word. And for the first time, she understands that death doesn't come to teach us fear, but to teach us to live. Taidy gazed down at her own hole. It had deepened slightly, but deep enough to make her heart ache. As if someone had secretly dug it. On the day she forced a smile. On the day she didn't dare listen to her inner voice. Without her ever realizing it. Taidy, voice trembling. Why is it deeper? Guardian of memories. Every day you live, without being honest with your heart, the hole will deepen. I'm not afraid of death, but I'm afraid of living life the wrong way. I want to live life to the fullest. That's it. That's the beginning of life. Taidy's tears weren't because of death, but because of regret. Regret for the days she let slip away, without ever questioning her own heart. The old man smiled. The smile of someone who had watched humanity for a long time and knew that accepting reality was the first step to truly living. One morning, Taidy woke up and found the graveyard gone, as if it had never existed. No graves, no markers, no guardians of memories. Only a gentle breeze remained, and the morning sunlight. It was as if everything was over. But something had just begun. It's really gone. Taidy didn't become a new person overnight, but she changed gradually,
She listened to others more. She dared to choose what she loved. She dared to speak her mind. And most importantly, she began to forgive herself for the days she had gone astray. Colleague, you look different today. Taidy smiles softly. Maybe because I've started listening to myself and listening to others more. Taidy doesn't know how her grave will change. She doesn't know how much time she has left. But she knows only one thing. With every breath, her heart is still alive. And that is enough for today. Taidy, talking to herself. I don't know how deep my grave is, but I know that right now, my heart is still beating. Decades later, Taidy returned to the graveyard once again. This time, she was not afraid. There was no trembling, no questions. Only peace. Like someone who had traveled a long distance and now knew how far they had come. Taidy, whispering, I'm back.
Her grave was peacefully sealed. There was no emptiness, no haste. The inscription on the stone read, "This is the final resting place of life." Not the end, but a reminder that once we lived. Taidy smiled. Not out of pride, but out of contentment. Taidy, reading softly. This is the final resting place of life, not the end. A gentle breeze rustles through, and a familiar whisper sounds again. Not a call, but a farewell. A gentle whisper. You used it well. The final resting place of life is the graveyard. Not to make us fear death, but to remind us that before we get there, we should live truly. And if we can do that, even when the final day arrives, it will simply be peaceful rest.